Clapperboard, a struggling single dad helped a woman fix her Mustang. She secretly owned a billion-dollar empire. The afternoon sun baked the cracked asphalt outside a small gas station on the edge of town. Jake Turner, a single dad and mechanic, wiped the sweat from his forehead as he finished another low-paying job. His hands were rough, his overalls stained. Every dollar he earned went to feeding his 8-year-old daughter, Sophie. He didn't complain. He just worked. That's what he'd always done. As he closed up his tools, a shiny red 1969 Mustang pulled in, the kind of car that didn't belong anywhere near this dusty place. A woman stepped out. She looked frustrated but graceful, business suit, sunglasses, polished shoes. "Hi," she said, half smiling, "I think something's wrong with my engine. It just died on me." Jake nodded. "Pop the hood." Within seconds, he was deep in the work, tightening, checking, and adjusting. Sophie watched quietly from a nearby stool, eating a sandwich wrapped in foil. "You two live around here?" the woman asked. Jake chuckled. "Yeah, for now. Trying to keep the shop alive." 10 minutes later, the Mustang roared back to life. "You're good to go," Jake said. "How much do I owe you?" she asked, pulling out her wallet. Jake wiped his hands. "Don't worry about it. You just needed a new connection. It's on the house." The woman looked surprised. "Free?" He shrugged. "I've been there. Sometimes a little help makes a big difference." She smiled faintly. "You remind me of someone I used to know." They talked a bit longer. She noticed the old photo pinned to his counter, Jake, his late wife, and Sophie as a baby. The woman grew quiet. "Life's been hard?" she asked softly. Jake nodded. "Yeah, but we're still standing." When she left, she thanked him again. He thought that was the end of it. The next morning, Jake arrived at his shop and froze. A black limousine was parked outside. The same woman stepped out, now in a sharp white suit, surrounded by assistants. "Mr. Turner," she greeted him with a confident smile, "we didn't finish our conversation." Jake blinked. "Ma'am, what's going on?" She handed him an envelope. Inside was a contract, a full offer to rebuild his workshop under her company's sponsorship. "I don't understand," Jake stammered. The woman extended her hand. "I'm Evelyn Cross, CEO of Cross Automotive. I own the Mustang brand, and the factory 3 towns over." Jake nearly dropped the papers. "You're that Evelyn Cross?" She nodded. "You helped me when you didn't have to. People like you are rare." Tears welled in his eyes as Sophie peeked out from behind the door. Evelyn knelt beside the little girl. "Hi, sweetheart. How'd you like a new place for your dad to work, with air conditioning this time?" Sophie giggled shyly. Jake couldn't speak. Evelyn smiled. "Sometimes the best mechanics aren't in skyscrapers, they're the ones fixing lives quietly, one bolt at a time." She turned back to him. "Consider this an investment, not in cars, but in good people." A month later, Jake's once tiny garage had transformed into a full-service workshop with a shining sign, Turner Motors, powered by Cross Automotive. Sophie ran around with a new backpack for school. And every time that red Mustang drove by, Jake smiled, remembering how one small act of kindness had changed their lives forever. 1. The afternoon sun poured over a cracked highway where heat shimmered like glass. 2. Jake Turner wiped grease from his hands and closed the hood of a rusted pickup. 3. His small roadside garage looked more like a shed than a shop. 4. Inside, a faded photo of his late wife hung above an old coffee maker. 5. "Daddy, can I finish my drawing?" asked 8-year-old Sophie, crayons scattered across a bench. 6. "Sure, honey. Just don't touch the tools," Jake said, forcing a smile. 7. Bills cluttered his desk, but he pushed them aside, another customer meant dinner tonight. 8. A sudden growl of an engine broke the quiet. 9. A sleek red 1969 Mustang limped into the driveway, coughing smoke. 10. Out stepped a woman in a black blazer, sunglasses, and heels that clearly didn't belong in dust. 11. Hi, sorry to bother you, she said, embarrassed. It just died on me. 12. Jake nodded. Pop the hood. Let's see what we've got. 13. She hesitated, then smiled faintly. You're not afraid of classic cars? 14. Ma'am, classics are all I can afford to fix, he joked. 15. Sophie peeked from behind a tire rack, curious about the shiny car. 16. Jake leaned over the engine, tools clicking, focus absolute. 17. Looks like a loose ignition wire, he murmured. 18. The woman watched his hands, steady, skilled, humble. 19. How long have you been a mechanic, she asked. 20. Too long, Jake said. Ever since I had to keep my own car running after, well, life happened. 21. 10 minutes later, the Mustang roared to life again. 22. Jake shut the hood, wiping sweat from his neck. There you go. Good as new. 23. She reached for her wallet. How much do I owe you? 24. Nothing, he said. It was just a wire. On the house. 25. She stared at him, nobody had ever refused her money before. 26. You don't take payment, she asked, almost suspiciously. 27. I take kindness, Jake said, giving a small grin. You looked like you needed a break, not another bill. 28. The woman looked around his garage, the peeling paint, the old fan, the little girl coloring in the corner. 29. You run this place alone? 30. Yeah. Since my wife passed. Sophie helps me when she can. 31. Her expression softened, something unreadable flickering in her eyes. 32. You're a good man, mister. 33. Turner. Jake Turner. 34. Well, Mr. Turner, she said, extending her hand. I'm Emily. 35. Sophie ran up, holding her drawing, a stick figure of Jake fixing a red car. 36. Emily smiled and bent down. That's beautiful. Is that me? 37. Sophie said proudly. Daddy fixes everyone's cars. He's a hero. 38. Jake blushed, rubbing his neck. Hero's a bit much, kiddo. 39. Emily laughed softly, the sound warm but tinged with sadness. 40. She took out a small card and handed it to him. If you ever need anything, call me. 41. Jake pocketed it without looking, probably another sales pitch. 42. Thanks, but I don't really have time for city business, he said politely. 43. Emily just smiled knowingly. You might change your mind. 44. As her Mustang disappeared down the road, Jake exhaled deeply. 45. He didn't know that the woman he'd just helped was Emily Carter, CEO of Carter Automotive Group, one of the largest companies in America. 46. That night, Jake closed his garage, humming softly while Sophie dozed in his arms. 47. A week later, two black SUVs stopped outside his garage. 48. Men in suits stepped out, asking, Mr. Turner? 49. Jake's heart jumped. Is something wrong? 50. One of them smiled. No, sir. Ms. Carter sent us. She'd like. 51. Jake wiped his hands on his oil-stained rag, confused. Ms. Carter? 52. Yes, sir, one of the men replied. She asked that you come with us. It's about an opportunity. 53. Jake looked at Sophie, who clung to his leg. Can my daughter come? 54. Of course, the man said kindly. 55. The SUVs glided through the city, far away from Jake's small town. Sophie pressed her face against the window, amazed by the skyscrapers. 56. Daddy, are we in a movie? She whispered. 57. Feels like it, Jake replied with a nervous smile. 58. They arrived at a towering glass